May our decisions today be made with wisdom, careful deliberation, and in the best interest of the city of Diamondhead. May we display patience and kindness in our dealings with each other and all who are in attendance, and may any decisions made today promote the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Diamondhead and the enhancement of the city as a whole.
Heather, pledge allegiance.
Commissioner Rubois,
Here.
Commissioner Flowers. Here. Commissioner Torgerson.
Here.
Commissioner Hector. Commissioner Lael. Commissioner Horn.
Here.
Commissioner DeBrawl.
Here.
Okay, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome the two commissioners, new ones, Heather and Lynn. Welcome, and look forward to working with you in these next years to come. And if you have any questions, feel free to call any of us or get in touch with us. Okay, we can have our names and numbers contributed to you. Okay, all right, good. Welcome. Okay. Any comments or adjustments to the agenda? Yeah, from any of the commissioners? Any additions to the agenda? No? All right. So now we need the approval of minutes. Oh, yeah, we have to approve the agenda. That's right. I'm sorry. So we needed a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Second? First, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then we have the approval of the minutes from February 23rd. Hopefully you've read the minutes. Are there any changes or corrections or additions to the minutes? No? I need a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Did I have 4 ayes on that? Did one of you guys vote for the minutes? I only heard 3 ayes. You did? Okay, all right. Just couldn't hear you. I don't hear well. Okay.
That mask has got your ear folded down. It's probably
That's true, it does,
your
yeah.
hearing.
Okay, we have new business this evening. And again, if I can mention, if you are a visitor and you want to speak, please make sure you sign in before you speak. Okay, so we need to have that done. That's by Miss Tammy. Okay, so we, with the resignations or the departure, if you will, of Mr. Bryce and Mr. Bauer, we have 2 new commissioners. That Mr. Bryce was the chairman, and therefore we have that office vacant, so we need to elect a new chairman. So the chair will entertain motions for nominations for new chairman for the commission.
I nominate John Rubar.
I second that nomination.
Okay. All those in favor, any comments on this motion?
Any other nominations?
Oh, that's right, any other nominations? Our lawyer keeps us on track here.
My job is to make sure he
That's my job.
does what he's supposed to do.
Yeah. No? All right. Close the nominations, okay? All right. We had a first and a second. The motion's on the floor. It needs to be voted on. All those in favor of
Do
the...
you want, does anyone
Oh,
have any
comments
comments on that?
None for me.
Thanks, guys. Okay. That being the case...
You're welcome, John.
And we're going to do a roll call on
we
this
have to do a
one,
roll call.
Mr. Rupar?
I
if
know
you-
that, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Rubois.
Abstain. I guess.
Flowers. Commissioner Hector. Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Lael. Commissioner Torgerson.
Aye.
Thanks so much. Our condolences.
And now, with that decision by you all, we're lacking a vice chairperson.
Yes, because I was
So-
vice chair, now we have to have a vice chairman nominated.
So,
So the floor is open for nominations.
I nominate Mr. Bill Horn.
It's been nominated, you second it?
Todd Ferguson.
No, we need a second.
Second.
Heather's
Second
seconded.
for Bill.
And Bill's, yes, okay. Any other nominations?
For Todd Ferguson.
Todd Ferguson's been nominated. It is second. What did you pay everyone? I shouldn't say that.
Get a strike
Okay.
fast.
The second motion, nomination fails for lack of a second. Therefore, the nomination on the floor is for Vice Chairman Bill Horn. Any comments? Okay, seeing no comments, we will call for a roll call vote. Ms. Tammy?
Commissioner Rubella.
Aye.
Commissioner Flowers. Aye. Commissioner Hector. Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Leo. Commissioner Torgerson.
Aye.
And Commissioner DeBrow.
Aye.
That's what they call payback. Okay. All right. I know, but you seconded. So I
I'll
get
buy
it.
you a drink, I'll buy you both a drink after the meeting.
Mama didn't raise no fool. Okay, so let us begin. New business. We've got the election done, so let us move on to something Mr. Jones has proposed, change to the ordinances, and I will read this, so bear with me as I go through this. I'm going to take off this mask because I'll probably run out of oxygen by the time I get done. The City of Diamondhead, represented by Ronald Jones, building official, has filed an application requesting a text amendment in accordance with the zoning law, Article 2.8 Amendment Rezoning Procedure. The proposed text amends that would add no net fill regulations to Article 14, land alterations and disturbances. The new language would be added to Articles 4-4.1 and the word filling to be in the first sentence, 14.1.1. Add the paragraph, no development permit is required for clearing, grubbing, as to the clear and by digging up the roots or clipping of the underbrush. 14.1.2, add zoning administrator or building official to the second paragraph, 14.1.3, and add 5. All temporary entrances to the site shall be limestone and or gravel placed from the edge of the asphalt to the property line. The new article, 14.1.4, filling. 1. Fill permit required. Excessive filling of land use may be detrimental to drainage impacts at elevated grades that are out of scale with the surrounding buildings and environment, soil erosion, and other negative impacts. To mitigate these negative effects and ensure proper stormwater management, no fill may be placed on any parcel of land for the purpose of raising its elevation without first submitting the application for obtaining a fill permit. Application to fill land. The application to fill land shall contain the following. A plot plan drawn to scale showing the following. I, an existing site topography, elevations and drainage flow. I, proposed site topography, elevation, and drainage flow. I, volume, type, and area proposed filled. 4, distances from surrounding property lines and buildings. B, a statement expressing the purpose of the proposed fill. Additional related information as may be requested by zoning. Administrator. Number 3, fill requirements. Fill permit application shall demonstrate the following. A, the least amount of fill is proposed to achieve the purpose of the operation. The amount of fill shall be offset so to achieve no net increase in soil volume at the site. Fill shall not exceed a height of 12 inches above the adjacent grade. Fill standards shall not preclude the excavation and movement of soil from one area of the site to another to establish a buildable grade consistent with section 14.1.2 above. E, fill shall not encroach into any designated drainage easements adjacent to the side or near a rear lot lines. F, fill shall not cause negative impacts to the surrounding property. 4, an application to fill land shall be evaluated by the zoning administrator / building official for compliance with this section. The zoning administrator building official shall either approve with modifications or deny the fill application. Mr. Ronald Jones, would you please give us your report on this?
All righty, thank you. Welcome, you commissioners. Glad to have you aboard. All righty, to give you a little background, perhaps if you knew the former mayor, Tommy Shaper, enough that he was very concerned about the city having a no net fill policy. That was one of his issues. And what has happened is that basically we have a lot of infill development now occurring, and perhaps not so desirous lots. I would say the majority of the other, if you will, good land is already taken up, so to speak. Maybe it's not development, but it's taken up. And so you can see in the city where that excessive fill has occurred, and you can see, well, a neighbor house is one elevation, and then you have the newer construction at a higher elevation. And then the slope is so where it creates a drainage issue with such slope, and possibly then it could actually, if it's not corrected enough or managed enough, it could run on adjacent property. So that there's two objectives of this text amendment here. The first objective is to decrease and or limit the amount of fill placed on an individual lot because of thereby shifting water surface runoff to adjacent property owners. And in the ordinance it explicitly says you cannot adversely impact your adjacent property owner. Okay. And so in part of the fill requirements in the text, we have put in there that the height from adjacent grade can only be 12 inches. All right. We also put in there about you can't fill drainage easements. You know, now we didn't mention the front, but it was just the side and rear yards. You know, the side would be 5 feet, rear usually. Oh, this is talking about drainage easements, not setbacks. And then typically the drainage easements on platted lots are 10 feet in the front and 10 feet in the rear. But we're eliminating, we're not requiring no fill in the front drainage easement. Okay. The second objective of this text amendment would be to encourage the development of possibly different types of structures, meaning like not typically slab on grade. You look around Diamondhead and you don't see hardly any raised structures. Well, except maybe on the south side, where in the floodplain. But other than that, it's slab on grade. And so perhaps this will encourage for developers and or builders to think about having elevated structures and not bring in loads of dirt and put a slab on top of it. or even chain wall. That will help as relates to, you can build obviously a chain wall, and that way you're not increasing more the path of the earth all the way to the edge of the property. As an example, that you can move dirt around on your lot, and meaning that if you took 9 cubic yards out, it actually removed muck, mucky dirt. You could say if you remove 9 cubic yards out, you could bring 9 cubic yards back in. That would be like a no-net field. Or if you had earth over here and you moved it to another location. And so there's some latitude. This even though it does put a different type of regulation to meet, but there is some latitude with this text amendment. And so since we have a lot of infill going on, and that we're trying to get a better handle on our drainage. And then because typically, I can tell you right now, when a neighbor sees a lot of earth going on next door and it's way up there and they're way down here, guess what? You get a call, and so we want to be in a proactive fashion here. Okay. Now, this is a public hearing, and so the essence of this is to receive comments. We're not in a position to answer questions. If people have questions, we'll be glad to take them. And then comments, if you want to submit them in writing, that's fine, preferably in writing. And then, even after the meeting, if individuals want to submit comments to me, then we can forward it on. And so this my recommendation for this text amendment would be to approve as is written, because I believe as written it does meet the objectives that we are trying to achieve. Okay. Then that would be the recommendation to the city council, with the provision of the city council to send all the questions and comments that we have received, send it to one of our consulting engineering firms to look at it from an engineering science perspective. Okay, and then after that, the consulting engineering firm would make comments or whatever, and then the city council could, if they so choose, to edit the ordinance as it is, they could do that. And so we would like for the recommendation to recommend to the city council that all the comments we receive, that a consulting engineer firm take those comments and see from an engineering science point of view if any editorial things need to be made aware of. And so that is my recommendation to the commission tonight. Anybody have any questions from me or comments? Okay. If not, we can open it up for public comments. Oh, I would say this, sir. I'm sorry. We do have a letter submitted by Oliver? Orlando. Michael Orlando, objecting to this, and that, would you like to read it into the record?
I'll read it into the record.
Yes, sir. Okay. And then we do have some photos of examples that was submitted by Miss Penny Crawford, and that she'll probably want to speak, and then I'll let her say, and if Miss Penny so chooses, she could ask that to be part of the record too. And so Before we start, do you mind letting
No.
Mr. Rich read into the record?
Mr. Rich, would you please read into the record?
Thank
What we
you.
received from Mr. Michael Orlando?
Michael Orlando. Good evening, gentlemen and madam. My wife and I are property owners on the south side. It has been a long-time dream to one day retire there with the hope of having all of our children and their families living there as well. Unfortunately, the proposed amendment as written is placing that dream in jeopardy. Therefore, please accept this email as my opposition to the proposed fill amendment as it is written. For my opposition, I give the following reasons. Number one, the north and south sides cannot be treated equally, as the north side has much greater elevation, whereas the south side does not. As such, this amendment would kill any future development on the south side. Please turn your attention to the proposed Article 14.1.4, filling. Number 3, fill requirements, item B. What we read here is that there is to be no additional fill brought in, but fill can be manipulated from within the existing lot conditions. This alone will greatly place that particular property in substantial harm's way. Most lots on the south side are below street level and not very big to accommodate this restriction. So in essence, one would be creating either a pond or a decrease in overall property elevation. Item C, fill should not succeed a height of 12 inches above adjacent grade. Ladies and gentlemen, 12 inches isn't even a reasonable start to get a property out of harm's way. An adjacent grade would not only allow a reasonable starting point, as most lots remain abandoned since Katrina. At minimum, adjacent grade should read, adjacent building or nearest developed property. Case in point, there's a lot for sale on Napuna Drive between Kalo Court and Hanakealoa Place. Thank you. Whew, Hanakealoa Place. Each adjoining lot is undeveloped. My wife and I considered to purchase that lot, but recently we walked in and found it to be a soup bowl. It is so low that there has been drainage ditches cut directing all surrounding water flow down each side of the lot. 12 inches of fill won't get this lot out of harm of the ditch water flow. Now, each adjoining lot, if they can't build up higher than 12 inches to the subject lot, then they too are in harm's way. If you are under the assumption that these proposed changes are derived from FEMA or NFIP rules, that information is inaccurate. I currently have a team of highly respected experts looking at this and have been informed that NFIP has no rule on fill, and FEMA permits fill in special flood hazard areas in order to avoid the risk of flooding. In general, this amendment directly contradicts your original plan to discharge dredged sediment into the Sacred Marsh designated wetlands not more than 30 yards from some of the very lots that these amendments will affect. Perhaps the restrictions should be site-specific, starting with its base flood elevation and other conditions. Ladies and gentlemen, the south side has sat dormant long enough. We have recently noticed an increase in development and certainly land values. As written, this amendment will negate that progress and the potential tax revenue. I highly suggest that this amendment be tabled long enough to conduct further due diligence, consult additional experts, and put forth consideration for the overall well-being of our beautiful city of Diamondhead. Thank you for consideration. Sincerely, Mike Orlando, Emergency Restoration, Inc.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else want to sign up?
Thank you, Mr. Rich. Okay, just to remind everyone, it's a 3-minute limit. when you're addressing the commission. If you and you'll hear the little phone going from our vice chairman. Will let you know when it's 3 minutes. It's not to be rude or inconsiderate. If you're in mid-sentence, you'll be allowed to complete that sentence. But if you have questions and comments, etc., please submit them and to Ms. Tammy, and she'll make sure they get submitted to the city council along with our recommendations. Okay? All right. So first, Ms. Penny Crawford, would you please come and state your name and your address, please?
Penny Crawford. I live at 7922 Apaki Place here in Diamondhead on the north side. I hope you all have your pictures. We took those this afternoon. Today was like the perfect day to discuss runoff, fill issues. And you can see from the first picture on your thing there are two houses that are under new construction right near our library. And they have been built on a sloping piece of land that sloped down and then leveled out. And it goes into a drainage ditch on the side. You can see what they did with the first house. They put in a whole bunch of red fill. It's all eroded away. It's running into the ditch and running into the drainage ditch now on the side and running into the house next door. And there are other pictures of that same location. I would ask you to go look at that location. The next picture in your file is a house. This new construction was just finished on Diamondhead Drive East. It's been elevated at least 3 feet above what was grade at the time. The woods you see next door to it, it was all woods. Both lots were all that same woods at that same level. It's now 3 or 4 feet higher than that. And it has just in the last 2 days been covered with sod to show you, so you cannot see the fill and the erosion. And there's another picture of the same thing. And you can see how that is a big change. You can see in the next picture the house with the carport, with the boat in the carport. That gentleman spent what he told us was approximately $30,000 on fill because that lot was so low, he was in a flood zone. This is on Diamondhead Drive East near the circle, the plane circle. And you can see the difference between his current grade and the grade of the lot next door. Huge change. And that water is going somewhere, folks, somewhere. And the next picture is the other side of his house with his stepped over fence. The next picture is the wonderful development of the condos there near the country club, near Lakeside Villas. Now they've done a lot of dirt work, and they're doing what Mr. Jones has mentioned, a chain wall. Because their land is dropping off very precipitously, then they're setting up their condos with chain walls, stepping them down the site. And then at the end of that site, you see the detention pond that they've created right there on Golf Club Drive. I don't know if that's the correct answer to this situation, but it is one of the options that they should have, as opposed to just making this a giant lump of red dirt that then runs into Golf Club Drive. Now here's another lot that you can see is filled with red dirt above the 12 inches, I would assume, now running all over everywhere. And that is over in near the circle, the big circle with the water tower. Okay, so here's this other house that I showed you at the very beginning with the erosion fence and the water running into the ditch, the mud running into the ditch. And you know, here in Diamondhead, we've spent a lot of money trying to deal with silt and stuff that goes down into Rotten Bayou. We've spent money to dredge that. Well, that silt came from somewhere, folks. It came from these kind of houses that they built right here on by the community center. So you can see my pictures. Those are my comments. We need to do something about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Peggy. Thank you for doing your work and presenting these pictures to us. Appreciate that. Okay. Next, Duke Levy. You state your name and your address, please, sir.
Yes. Greetings, everyone. I'm Duke Levy. I'm an engineer here. My address, my office is here in Diamondhead. What is my address? 4412 Leisure Time Drive. I came. Mike Orlando asked me to come. I didn't know he was not going to be here. I was just here to support him or just to hear what's going on. But maybe I can add a little bit to help you guys and ladies, what the decision that y'all have to come up with, a recommendation. I do a whole lot of work in Bay St. Louis. Bay St. Louis has a process to get a fill permit. You have to get an engineer involved. you have to get an elevation survey done, meaning to get elevations all across the property. And then they allow you up to 2 foot of fill. Basically, the elevations along the property show the highest point. They'll take whatever highest point on that land, and you go 2 foot above it. And then a letter of no impact that from the engineer that this fill that's going to be brought in will not impact the drainage in the area. So there's a detailed drainage plan, and I see that in the ordinance that was made up. That's good. If you get an engineer involved, I think that would help maybe offset some of the issues. But we have to, for the city, show a fairly detailed drainage plan showing how it's going to drain, showing the water going to swale ditches along property lines and getting it out, either toward the front or toward the rear into the canal. So mainly what the 2 foot does, it brings the land a little bit above the street. And maybe when you guys consider what kind of ordinance y'all might have, you may want to treat the south side a little bit different than the north side, because there are waterfront land, and you want drainage to go away from your house, not toward it. And true, like where Mike Orlando has property, the street is higher than the land. So I think probably one reason, I don't know, I was going to talk to Mike about it. It looked like he just brought up fill to get above the street. Now, granted, I don't know how much fill is there, but he did bring up some fill where his house is going to go. One thing you may want to consider on the south side is to have some kind of requirement of maybe 12 inches minimum above the street to allow drainage away from the structure, so you don't have a structure in a hole. That's just something that, from an engineer's standpoint. But I just wanted to bring out what the city of Bay St. Louis does. They have a pretty good procedure to bring fill in. They get an engineer involved, do an elevation survey, 2 foot above the highest point on the land is allowable, V zone or whatever zone. So just wanted a point of information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from the public? You didn't sign in? Okay. Comments to the commissioners?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Jones. Would the road be considered an adjacent grade for the 12 inches above the road, or would that not be?
Yes, the ordinance says, we have an ordinance already that says that the finished floor elevation of the house has to be 1 foot above the crown of the road.
Okay, so that would be considered an adjacent grade, or am I misinterpreting that?
Well, the intent there was the adjacent grade was that, yes, so the perimeter around your house.
Okay.
And that you couldn't be any fill more than 12 inches adjacent around your house. That was the intent there of, you couldn't get any higher from the existing grade. You could only go up a foot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question on that. So if that did not bring you to a foot above the crown of the road, which is going to take precedence? The existing that they're required to bring it to a foot above? So it sounds like in some of these instances where I've seen houses kind of down in holes, that they may have not done that in the first place. So now the house next to them is being limited because the house adjacent did not follow the 12 inches above the grade of the road.
Well, yes, things are not perfect.
So which would take precedence?
That you'd have to be a foot above the crown of the road, and then the developer or builder would consider a chain wall or a raised foundation on piers for
How
that.
about on so we're on the south side, most houses are already raised, but they have a slab underneath that the pilings come through and where the cars park.
Mm-hmm.
Would that slab be allowed to be 12 inches above the crown of the road?
On the south, no, and the reason I say that is that on the south side, there is it's not called a flooded way. we have wave action, golly. Velocity zone. Oh my gosh, how could I forget that? Okay, yes, in a V zone, a velocity zone. Oh Lord have mercy. That the FEMA regulations does require that limiting field. Mr. Oliver, Orlando has a different opinion, but in a velocity zone, you can't have any field at all. What it said, what the FEMA actually says, you're limited to minor field and grading for drainage. So in other words, that if you have, in other words, you sort of like fill in your holes at where you could be leveled out. Because in a velocity zone you have wave action, and that if that was allowed, you'd have to have a either a HEC 2 or a RAS study to show that you're not increasing the base foot elevation in there. So in a velocity zone, there's basically no fill. You can have minor filling for grading and drainage, and that's it.
You could still do the mucking and replace the cubic yards?
Yes,
as you
yes,
said,
correct.
stuff they took out?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Now,
So that is where Diamondhead differs from Bay St. Louis, because Bay St. Louis on the south side of the bay is not a velocity zone. They're a flood zone, but
That's
the north side of the bay is the velocity zone.
correct. That is absolutely correct.
Oh, okay.
Now, Mr. Orlando did mention in one statement about a special flood hazard area. Now, that is an A zone. And that one way that FEMA does allow fill in an A zone to get above the base foot elevation. They allow it. Okay. But let's see. Just because FEMA allows it doesn't mean that the city can't have any less restrictions about what we would like to have to occur. So it is true in a special flood hazard area, you can have fill brought in to achieve your base foot elevation of the house. But the local cities are autonomous, and that if they want to add more regulations that would not allow such fill, then that's the city's prerogative.
But isn't all of the south side of Diamondhead an A and a V zone? Isn't that why insurance is so?
There is an A zone. Let me say this: by the FEMA maps, there is an A zone. However, the city, when it adopted the flood maps, there's a flood zone called coastal hazard area, A area, a coastal high hazard area. So what it does is that any property within that coastal A zone area, it's treated like it's a velocity zone. So yes, there is a zone property down on the south side. However, that when it was adopted, the city chose to say that all the property that's A zone, you have to treat it like a velocity zone. So that's what happened there about A zone. And so in essence, you got a lot of property that's in the velocity zone on the south side.
So on what the FEMA rule saying velocity zone, that you cannot come above grade, Diamondhead can't supersede that and say, oh, yes, you can, right? What FEMA says is the max that they can come.
Correct.
Diamondhead could say you can be below that, but that we can't allow you to come above that. Is that correct?
Correct. That is absolutely correct, because that's FEMA, that's the federal regulations, and that when we have a FEMA compliance audit, they come down in and then well, we did go recently through an audit, but I've been through several, and you pull out every plan that's been permitted, and then they look at it and see if everything administrative is right, and then they take those same plans, and then they go out in the field and say, did you build it like that? And then if there's a hiccup, they write you up, in which we had 5 write-ups saying you violated the ordinance, and then they tell the city, you correct it. And so eventually, and once ever, FEMA likes to have an audit every 5 years of your locality because of so many counties and localities in the nation. Sometimes it's 7 years before they get around to you again. But so what I'm trying to say is that we may think we can get away with something, but it'll eventually be found out. I guess we'll put it that way. And then they say, you fix it. You make the owner correct it. And then we give the owner time to correct it. If they don't correct it, and the owner, then they put, well, I'm beginning to chase a rabbit. Let me just stop there. We're taking up time.
Basically, what he's asking for is above what FEMA would allow, so we could not
No, we couldn't do it.
allow what he's asking.
Exactly right.
Because FEMA's rules supersede.
That's right. That is absolutely correct. Yes. Yes. Anything else, gentlemen, ladies, commissioners? Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Ron. I think you did a good job on this, Ron. Thank you for your work. I'm sure your group has worked hard on this. And I think some of these are very essential. I know most of us who walk or run around the city have noticed the fact that there are new residences being built, and there's no gravel, and it breaks away the edge of the road. That causes problems. And you have situations where the road is above. We've all seen that. There's several examples of that throughout the city. The road is above the house level. And then they get flooded whenever we have high water. So, any other comments, commissioners? Okay, yes,
May I make one more statement? Just
of course, absolutely.
And this has nothing to do with field, but in that same text in the ordinance, we're also requiring that your entrance to your lot, in terms of building during construction, you have to have lime or gravel from the edge of the street to your property line.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to point that out, that's part of the text included in that, but it has nothing to do with the field.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation. So I need a motion to recommend this to City Council, that they we're recommending that they turn this over to an engineering firm for consideration and get their comments on it. That's our motion, I believe, in summary form. Derek, does that seem to work?
That's the recommendation of the building official, so.
Okay. So I need a motion to recommend this to go to the City Council for their review.
A motion to recommend it, that it goes to City Council for their review as it is.
Second. Okay, well, I'll do a roll call vote here. Tammy?
Commissioner Rubor,
Aye.
Commissioner Bauer, never mind. Commissioner Flowers, aye. Commissioner Hector, Commissioner Horn,
Aye.
Commissioner Leo, Commissioner Torgerson,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrow.
Aye.
Okay. The motion is passed. Is there any other unfinished business to come before the commission? Commissioners? Okay. Okay, this time we open up the comments to the public. Does anybody have any public comments they would like to make at this time? All right, commissioner comments. Oh,
You public.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Come up, and if you will, state your name and your address, please.
Yeah, John Hall, 6815 Hilo Street. Going back to the Orlando lots, I sold Mike Orlando 6 lots at the end of Luakini. If you go down Luakini, you'll notice that it's much lower than Lulu Place, the adjoining street across the canal. Orlando had another contract in on a house at the end of Luakini on Diamondhead Drive South that now is on hold. He wants to develop, he wants to do nice stuff down there. I work with another builder, Fred May, that Ron is familiar with. He's built a house that sold in 3 days for $549,000. He's got another one under construction on the same street on Kanoa. Fred May has 6 other lots on the south side. He'd like to buy some more, but we can't kill, or at least this council cannot kill the values of that property. Right now, we're seeing the biggest boom in Diamondhead I've ever seen. I've been here 25 years. People are bailing out of these cities. They want to get into a safer area. Development is coming. Development is here. All the People's Bank lots that had been repossessed by People's from Purcell, the majority of those have been sold to developers. So they are coming. Chain walls, I have no problem with that, to keep the mud out of the ditches and whatever, but it's going to add to the cost of the property. And right now, new construction, if you look at it, you're looking at $126 to $178 a square foot, some even higher. It's going to get out of the reach of where, end up having another bubble. So, do what you think is right, but the development is what spurs the economy and taxes. Regulations kill it. And that's why Donald Trump was doing the right thing. No new regulations, let's get rid of regulations. Let people have the freedom to do what they want to do with their property and not harm the adjoining property owner. So, and currently today there are 26 houses for sale in Diamondhead. So we're in a very critical short supply. And it's coast-wide, not just here. Values in Bay St. Louis are through the roof. They're building like crazy on the waterfront down there. So it's something I've never seen before. But it's here. And it's not going to go away for a while. Yep, thank you for your time.
John, I agree with you, but what these guys need to do is talk to FEMA, because we just explained that we don't have the power to supersede.
I understand. Yeah.
If we made a rule that said they can add 10 feet of dirt, FEMA's not going to allow it.
I understand that. Yeah.
The regulation that you're talking about needs to be addressed at a level much higher than us.
I agree. But it's coming. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay. Any other communication or announcements from staff?
At the moment, we have one case coming before the commission, and that is actually a map amendment. That is the property is a residential lot that used to be owned by the POA, and then Mr. Grotowski had it, and then Mr. Jasby bought it. And when we developed back in 2012 our zoning ordinance, it was on PFR because it was in the POAs. Okay, so in the PFR, no residential houses are permitted.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why you'll have one case to change that one lot to residential, so a single-family home can be built on that lot, to change from PFR to R2 probably. Is that right, Mr.? Change it to R2?
One.
One. I
One.
apologize, R1.
One. Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And we also have another variance request and possibly a second variance request.
Not to get
If
into
they
this
meet
too
the
deep.
deadline.
They
Not-
met the deadline.
Okay.
Not to get into this too deeply, but just when, suggestion, just when you bring this lot forward, just make sure we have the surrounding area so we know that was this residential around the area that we're trying to change or not.
Yes, it's
Okay,
all, it's
that's
off
all.
of Turnberry.
Okay. Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
So it's probably just like, with other, what, TFR, is that correct? That
Yeah,
we changed
that's
because
right.
they
Right.
zoned
The-
it when they went from POA to city property?
Correct.
That could definitely be
That's it.
what happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The next city council member meeting will be on April 6th at 6 p.m., I believe. And the next planning commission meeting will be on April 27th at 6 o'clock. Okay. Is there any other further business? No? I will entertain an motion to adjourn.